and it's home to probably the most famous ghost story in the entire country, the Waka in the Mist, which was supposed to have been the herald for the eruption of Mount Tarawera and the destruction of the Pink and White Terraces. It's the site of the most destructive earthquake that the country has seen this century, and the most violent attack of terrorism our country has ever seen. You know, it sounds like a really dumb reason to run for mayor of a place that you have a family holiday home in but don't live in. Politics. Amnesty International called an organised backlash of hate that weaponizes fear and misinformation to roll back human rights. This media coverage was then used to set government policy going forward that allowed the continued suppression of Māori authority. Hobson's Pledge hasn't posted about how that's unfair on voters, like the one Māori councillor elected unopposed to the Waikato Regional Council. And that leads to a feeling of disassociation and being ignored by council with a lot of the locals. She's shared Chantal Baker's stuff on her campaign page in the past before she scrubbed it, which Wellington's Ray Chung and Independent Together candidates chose not to do. The government cancelled 3 waters without a backup plan, putting costs back on the councils. Is the leader of the region's whitest barbershop sextet. That's honestly an amazing legacy. This group that are, as they say, all aligned on their views. It's easy to go into his multiple connections with disinformation groups. It includes some of the wealthiest people in the country, pointing out that she has a history of this clear racism. Star Trek or Star Wars. Hello there, kia ora. Welcome to election night, which has been a really long day. Now, I'm having trouble hooking this into Facebook, so I've just put a link up on the Facebook page to the YouTube page, so hopefully people come along and watch, because, yeah, otherwise, what have I done for the day? I've just sat here watching some results. It's been, fascinating. So don't mind me, I haven't eaten, and I've got a whole bunch of videos and stuff prepped for you so you can have a look and see who it is that's won our mayoralty races around the country. We can take a look and see who it is that got elected that might be slightly concerning, and we can take a look and see which of the more concerning candidates didn't get elected. So that's what we're going to be diving into. We're also going to start off with a look over the Māori ward referendum and see what passed and what failed, because the success rate wasn't the highest, but it could have been a lot worse, and there's definitely some interesting patterns around that. It's, some fascinating stuff. So very, very easy stuff to get into. Let me just see what I have where, because there's a billion things being put on here. You know what? Let's start with the Māori ward referendum results, and then we will have a quick discussion about that afterwards. Feel free to throw me any questions. I only just got the last result about 10 minutes ago, so it's been a little manic, as you can imagine. Go back and see. So yeah, the pass rate was 25 failed, and the rest of the 42 passed. My maths is not mathing today because it has been a very long day looking at numbers and the brain's going all squiffy. So what happens now is those that failed the referendum, they still have the Māori ward for this term, but at the next term, there should be no Māori ward on the ballot for people voting in their local body elections. For those that passed, it will continue to go ahead. Generally speaking, around the Wellington area picked up quite a bit in terms of support for Māori wards. It was kind of surprising to see some places that kicked in. In some places, like Kirikiriroa Hamilton, it's actually a really slim margin that's passed by. It's a couple of hundred votes. And for most places, it was within 1,000 votes difference between keeping or not keeping them. So overall, a very mixed bag there. So there was a question that actually popped up in here. Well, 17. There we go. 17. I'll take 17 as a pass. So yeah. But there was a question here about turnout, whether or not the turnout actually impacted it. The throat's already starting to hurt. I can't even find the question here, and it was here 2 seconds ago. But essentially, the turnout this year was really bad. We were looking at a nationwide turnout of 31.61% on average. Some places like Gore actually got 51% turnout, whereas some places like Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, had their lowest turnout ever. And the numbers seem to be trending downwards again all over the country. And here's a really big problem that we've got in terms of trying to shake the system up. There's a lot of things that could be done, like making the Electoral Commission be put in charge of local body elections, having an actual election day like we do for a general election. We could look at other ways to get people to vote, like electronic voting of some sort, which is always a bit iffy because they're not really sure that we've got the security measures for it. But generally speaking, the government won't do it. There was a big report that was handed to Simeon when he became Minister of Local Government, and he decided that it was too woke. Those were his words, so he threw the whole thing out. And now they've gone through and they've kind of piecemealed a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to what it is that they're doing for local government. And none of that at the moment is about increasing turnout, with the exception of increasing the voting period this time by a week, which didn't have the effect that they wanted it to have. They saw a really decent start, and then it kind of slipped a little bit. So we're looking at more declining votes, really. And as Pat likes to say on BHN, when the left votes, the left wins. You'll never guess who didn't really vote this election. It was a big swing to the right for a lot of councils, a big swing to the far right for some really scary places. And this time around, we have more people elected who have links to disinformation and hard right organizations than we have ever had before. It has been a very long, very brutal day in terms of election results. So, yeah, that's a really positive way to start the stream, isn't it? Super positive. Let's take a look at some of the mayoralty results, because there's some really interesting ones in here as well. So let's start off right at the top of the North Island, actually. Let's go from top to bottom for a little bit. We've got Moko Tapania. Moko won the Far North District Council really overwhelmingly, really easily, which was really good. He was up against an incumbent councillor who's run a couple of times as well. So generally speaking, it was not a bad little turnout for him. He did very well. And of course, they voted to retain Māori wards. In Whangarei, though, well, that's a little bit different. You've got Vince Cucurello. He's been re-elected, but his margin is actually really slim. They're using STV for the first time in this election. They did vote against Māori wards, but there is a possibility of a change here. And all of these results are based on the initial count that's been done right up until today. There'll be more voting counts done tomorrow, and then everything will be recounted again next week. So we'll have much better results then to be able to go, all right, this is what we need to deal with. It's a live and learn kind of situation. And then in the final part of Northland, we've got Kaipara, where Jonathan Larson seems to have won, but again, the vote lead is within 150 votes of the next person down, who is Snow Tane. So you have somebody like Jonathan Larson, who's voted for every horrible thing that outgoing Mayor Craig Jepson has voted for. as well as some really dodgy stuff around business shares in a company that wants to burn trash. Versus somebody who is mana whenua, who knows the region, who's very well spoken of in the community. And it's come down to, a couple of hundred votes over there. So special votes, again, could change that entirely. Again, this just shows you that people need to get out to vote, and they just haven't really done that. If we keep going down the island a little bit, the really big one, of course, it was Wayne Brown won re-election. He was very convincingly winning that race. He got 150,000 votes. Karen Leone, who was the next on the list, she got 50,000 votes. And then third was actually Ted Johnston, who was the former head of the New Conservatives. He came in with 20,000 votes. So there was a big gap there for Wayne. He romped in very, very convincingly. If we move down the country again a little bit further to the Waikato District Council, Axel Beck has actually taken it out. He is a former councillor who was out last term and has been brought back in again to replace, I think it's Jackie Church. She was the mayor there. So that's a bit of a shake-up. And there has been a few shake-ups around with different councils this year, which is always the way. And at least a third of councils were getting a new mayor anyway because the others had stood down, and 2 councils had mayors elected unopposed. Then the next one that we've got is Hauraki with Toby Adams. Toby was one of 3 mayoral candidates that were running here. He actually did incredibly well because the other 2 mayoral candidates, well, they just don't really have the name power that he has. So they just didn't do as well. And then, what else have I got? Oh, see, and that's when my list goes all squiffy. Let's duck over to Rotorua. Tanya Tapsell, she very easily won the next person on the list, which was Rob Lee, I believe. Robert's actually a member of Voices for Freedom, and so him not being mayor is probably a good thing. Unfortunately, he was elected as a councillor along with his mentor. So, cool. Very cool stuff, I guess. But Rotorua did decide to retain its Māori wards, which is really good to see. Let's duck over to New Plymouth. We have Max Brough. He's one there. He, of course, is the hard right mayoral candidate that set up a hard right AstroTurf group that they then handed over to the Taxpayers Union to run. So he had to step down from that group. They have really specific rules about that kind of thing at the Taxpayers Union. Who knew they had rules? But that means that he has been elected mayor. He claims he's got a mandate now to really tighten the belt. So for the people of New Plymouth, you should be writing in and asking whether or not you get to choose which services and which assets get cut or sold, because that's going to be the only way to be able to maintain that god-awful Taxpayers Union pledge that he decided that he was going to sign. So well done, New Plymouth. Then next on my list here, I have Kirikiriroa Hamilton. Tim McIndoe has won that one. Tim has probably the highest name recognition of all the candidates that were running. He's a former MP. He was an MP in Hamilton for many years, but he has only been on council for half a term because he won a by-election not that long ago. Hamilton City also voted in, again, Andrew Bidder and 3 of his better Hamilton candidates. Not the craziest of the candidates, to be fair, but the one who claimed that she was a lawyer when she wasn't. So, shouldn't have done that, really. One who said that he wanted to build more housing and then work to cancel Kāinga Ora housing builds because it's the wrong kind of housing. You get the picture. Hamilton is probably a place I'm not going to be welcome in anytime soon, but it can go on the list. Lots and lots of fun to put on the list. We also have, next up, Grant Smith. Grant is the Palmerston North Mayor. He's been re-elected. He didn't have any sort of big names that were challenging him. He had some really interesting candidates challenging him, but he probably had the most prominence in terms of candidates running there. So it's not a huge surprise that he came home with that one. And then if we have another look over in Dunedin, now this is a really interesting one because Dunedin uses STV. There's, I think, 15 candidates that were running for the mayoralty. They're not going to be releasing the preliminary results for the council until probably around 9 o'clock tonight, if they get it out today at all. There's just so many people running. It was a field of around 50 or 60 people that were running for council. It was absolutely massive and absolutely impossible to get everything right. And because it's STV, the ranking system just kicks in a little bit. It just takes a bit of time to get that sorted. But it looks like she is definitely going to take out the mayoralty, and she's the former deputy mayor, or might be the current deputy mayor. there's a deputy mayor in her title somewhere. And then let's jump up to Upper Hutt, where Perry Z has ousted the longest running mayor in New Zealand. Wayne Guppy gone after a couple and a half decades. She's won quite convincingly there. So big changes. Upper Hutt's had now 3 mayors since 1980. So they don't go in for change a lot, I guess. So very, very odd kind of place by the looks of it. So yeah, so far, that's what we've seen in terms of results. Yep, Guppy has been flushed. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yes, Peter, you're right. These are progress results, not preliminary. Preliminary will be tomorrow. Preliminary results will be the ones that get cast today. And one of the things that was really interesting about today was the number of people that voted. Like, I think it was Hamilton City Council decided to call it Super Saturday. Like, just the sheer volume of votes that came in from all over the country today was absolutely massive, which is good. I love seeing people going out and voting. There were lines for miles at libraries all over the place. It was absolutely brilliant. But we've got a government now that is trying to make it harder for people to do same-day enrollments for a general election. They go, well, people should be better organized. This is the kind of thing that has a lot of lead-in time for people to vote, and they still needed to vote on the day. That's giving us a really good example of why that law change that central government is looking at is really bad. You know, it's a really problematic system. If you're going to say to people, no, you can't enroll and vote on the day, when we saw the tens of thousands of people do that all over the Motu, it is really very concerning. All right, who else we got next? Oh, let's jump over to Wellington. This one is the least surprising win for the entire country. Of course, Andrew was going to take it out from the moment that Tory stepped down. Tory, however, didn't win her seat this year. So she's free now to run for Parliament at the next general election, which is totally going to piss off Sean Plunkett and all those other right-wing numpties that were like, oh, she's going to run. And she's like, no, I'm hoping to be busy at council. But now she's not, so she can run. So chances are pretty high that she's going to end up on the green ticket going into next year's general election. And Wellington this year had a major shift to the left. It was already a left-leaning council, but it had a huge shift to the left. In fact, only one independent together candidate got in, and that was Ray Chung. So I guess he truly is independent now. But of course, he also had Diane Calvert and is it Nicola Young, I think her name is. The 3 right-wing candidates who made the most noise in the last term are the ones who have been re-elected to this term for Te Whanganui-a-Tara for Wellington. So they've got a vast majority of left-leaning candidates there, or councillors and the mayor now. So I think it's 10 out of the 12. Yeah, it's not a bad number. Not a bad number. I was thinking the same thing here, Hopinaki, but if you're in other places, I would thoroughly recommend that you move. Like there's some places that are worse than anywhere else. It's scary. It is very scary. Right, let's jump down to Christchurch, where Phil Major won quite convincingly. Phil has this really bad habit of just doing things without telling people and going around official channels, and Christchurch people seem to like that. However, they did not seem to like a lot of the other candidates that were putting their names up. We saw a couple of their independent citizens not get in. For some really fucked up reason, 450, nearly 500 people voted for a known white supremacist for mayor. So Christchurch, I guess. But it is what it is, I guess. Dan, Christchurch. And then we have, who have we got here? Where are we here? Oh, Napier. Richard McGrath has outed, I can't even remember who the person was that he outed, but he's taken over the role there as the mayor. He's a current councillor who's stepping up. Now, let's go to Hutt City. Ken Laban won this one. Ken Laban. The number of people who I've seen go, thank God Uncle Ken won. Like everybody seemed to really like him. The next person there was actually the national actor line, Brady Dyer. So it was a fairly close race, but Ken ended up winning that one quite convincingly. Really glad to see, though, that Suzanne Levy, the well-known horrible TERF, was not elected to council there at all. because they have an at-large ward. I think it was an at-large ward. But yeah, just, nope, did not get in. So there is no turf that I know of that's sitting on the council in Hutt City. And that is something that people should definitely be happy. Now, this one here, I'm just going to correct Sam very briefly here. He was actually out campaigning during the campaign using ACT and National Party campaign equipment. So he definitely has some sort of alignment with them, some sort of relationship with them. So, all right, let's see what else we got. No, that's actually wrong. Jason Smith did not win that. See, this is the problem I've got here. Let's go to Matamata Piako. Now, I'm really kind of happy with some of the results. Ash Tanner was mayor of Matamata Piako the term before last, and he was voted out. And then he fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole a lot. And now they've voted him back in. But they have voted out Christo nationalist Caleb Ansell. You might have come across some of Caleb's stuff online. Hopefully you haven't. He's the master of the millennial pause, but he got the lowest voter number, not even 500 votes for the ward that he was running in. The people of Matamata Piako sent a very firm, clear message that they don't have time for his weird great replacement theory or complaining that the Prime Minister is wishing Muslims a happy Ramadan, in his words. They just did not want him. But they did want to go back to Ash and his conspiracy theories. So, yeah. All right, let's have another look at this one. This is an interesting one here. In Whakatane, there is 19 votes difference between the incumbent Victor Luca and the next person on the list, who is Nandor Tanchos. They are so close that it will be down to every last vote once it's counted before they were able to do anything at all. So that's one to definitely keep an eye on. Tomorrow there'll be an updated result list, and then later in the week there'll be the final count, and that's the one that I think you're probably going to see what the result is. So it is surprisingly close. I actually thought that Nandor was going to romp on in because of the name recognition, but his opponent Victor's actually been there for a few years now. He's very well respected in the community, so it's good to see. It is really good to see. Tight races, they're lots of fun. All right, in South Waikato, we have Gary Petley. He was re-elected. Gary has been one of those most laid-back mayors that I think I've ever come across. He's just like, yeah, cool, let's do what you want to do. So really good to see him get back in. Who else have we got? Got David Moore. David running in Opotiki. Again, he just romped straight back in. And then we have this John Funnell. He is the new mayor of Taupo. David Troavis has been mayor there for, I think, 3 terms, maybe 4. And he came 3rd in this year's race. So this is the new mayor of Taupo, John Funnell, who's a current councillor. I think he's a current councillor. So yeah, he is back he's in there now to try and shape how Taupo is going to move forward. And if we have a look over in Kawerau, we've got Faylene Tunui. Now, she was one of 2 candidates that were running here. Her opponent was actually a long-time councillor as well, who basically said, yeah, let's have a bit of a competition and see who goes. And Faylene has been overwhelmingly re-elected in that one. And then if we go to the Western Bay of Plenty, we have James Denyer. James was actually on a search and rescue boat out in the water when he got the call to say that he still got the job. He had some really interesting people that were running against him that included Margaret Murray Benge, the crypt keeper's wife from Hobson's Pledge, Mrs. Hobson's Pledge herself. So there was some interesting competition, but he managed to scrape on through for that, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. And then we have Neil Voske, who was re-elected in Stratford. Honestly, I didn't even know who the mayor of Stratford was before this election. Such a quiet little place. Very, very quiet little place. And then we have, who's next on my list? Phil Nixon. Phil actually won South Taranaki again. And honestly, that photo that I lifted, the graphics from, he's sitting on a farm. He's on a farm working with sheep. Like, it's kind of what I expected from the mayor of there. Just out there doing the mahi. So no complaints there. And we have Weston Curtin as well. He's been re-elected to Ruapehu. This one kind of surprised me, actually, with the retention of the Māori wards, because they voted to keep it. I kind of got the impression that it's not a place with a huge Māori population. And to be fair, I don't know specifically. I haven't checked the stats or anything like that. And that was also a really close race when it came to the Māori ward retention. And then I think I've done that one. Let's have a look at this one. Now, this is a really interesting one here for me. Rangataike is, I love their content that they've been working up for the whole election. The person who's been doing all of their election content has just been absolutely nailing the kind of goofy funness of it all. But what's really interesting about this race is there were 4 people that were running, and one of them is a very well-known New Zealand First connected local who is a little bit out there. He was a Liz Gunn fan, and in that area they actually have a bunch of community pages, like most places do, that are run though this time specifically by Voices for Freedom supporters and Dave Christensen supporters, and they still managed to fail getting him on council or elected as mayor. It was a very resounding we'll stick with what we've got. We know how that's going to work. In the Manawatu, we've actually got Michael Ford. Michael was the elected unopposed for this. The previous mayor stood down and decided wasn't going to rerun. Michael was the only one who put his hand up, so Michael's known he's had the job now for a couple of months. And then if we head a little bit far right to Whanganui, you've got Andrew Tripe. Now, to be fair, I haven't looked at the full details of this one. I don't know if Michael Organ got elected. I hope not. There's a couple of people I really hope didn't get elected there because they have some of the most vocal online disinformation peddlers in their community. So it would be really good if they didn't get elected. Andrew himself, he made the news, so I'm sure you're all aware of exactly what it was that he got up to. He's doing his Charlie Kirk talk, which is, let's duck over to Gisborne. Rahiti Stoltz, she was re-elected again quite convincingly. She had a couple of men that were running against her and she put them in their place. And in, where is it? The Kapiti Coast, Janet Holborough was elected again, re-elected. Now, this is also one of my favorite races because Kapiti Coast had a group called We Love Kapiti. They were made up of a whole bunch of people from Voices for Freedom, including the Wellington Regional Voices for Freedom coordinator, Dean Harris. Only one of them was elected to one community board. The rest failed miserably. People did not vote for them. The turnout was not huge for them. They were sent a very, very clear message that voters on Kapiti Coast do not want to have disinformation networks having a say with their local body government and how things are done there. So good on you, Kapiti. That was one of my favorite highlights of the day, actually, was seeing that they did not get in. So for the Waikanai Community Board, I know Michael Moore, who you might have seen on some of my other content and some of his content, who there's a video with him on my YouTube page at the moment. He got the highest vote count for the Waikanai Community Board. I'm pretty sure that's the other one that had the We Love Kapiti person on. I don't have to go back and have a look. Lots of numbers running through my head. Lots and lots of numbers. All right, who else we got? Who's next on my list? So many people. All right, we got Scott Gilmore. Scott was elected in Tararua. Again, fairly quiet campaign. Nothing too major or scary about that. You had Steve Cretney in Carterton. Yeah, he's the new mayor for Carterton because the old one stepped down, which I think was Ron Mark, former New Zealand First MP. And of course, before that was Georgina Byers, the first transsexual mayor in the country, first transsexual MP in the country, in fact, in the world, I think. So those are big shoes to fill. You know, it's a title that has a lot of legacy down there in Carterton. So good on him. And we have Bernie Wanden in Horowhenua. Now, this is one that's been really interesting because the results for Horowhenua have only just sort of hit the ground. They've been really close all day. So it's another one that might end up changing based on everything else that's going on with the other votes. So it is, a bit hit and miss, but we will see how that one rolls out. We have Bex Johnson. Bex Johnson in Masterton. She's been elected the new mayor there. We have Tim King. Tim has been elected or re-elected, I think, in Tasman. Pretty sure it's re-elected. Again, relatively quiet campaigns, so no big concerns there. We have Anita Baker. She's been re-elected in Porirua. Purirua's vote on the Māori wards was 2-1 in favour of keeping it. It was a huge turnout in favour of keeping Māori wards in Purirua. They did an amazing job of getting people out there, people involved, and getting them to vote. So really, really good to see. All right, let's see who's next on my list. Let's go for a Dame. Dame Fran Wild. She has been elected in South Wairarapa quite convincingly there. We have Nadine Taylor, who's been re-elected in Marlborough, and we have Nick Smith, who has also been re-elected in Nelson. And again, they were all relatively quiet campaigns. Fran, I think she's very good at what she does and passionate about communities and everything like that. Even though she's got the title and stuff like that, I don't think that's what got her across the line. I think it was the work that she does in her communities and how passionate it is that she is about all of that. Oh, what's that? I think I've got something coming through here. Oh, yes, a travel advisory. So, yeah. In terms of Selwyn District Council, it had a massive flush out of pretty much everybody. It elected 11 candidates across their council and their community boards who have connections directly to Voices for Freedom or Donald Trump, and at least one who was an ACT candidate and then stopped being an ACT candidate for some reason, but still writes for Don Brash's blog, the Bassett Brash and whatever the other one is. So yeah, a travel advisory has been put in place for Selwyn. Don't go there if you trust in things like science or logic or people not wanting to kill you. It's really bad there. An almost clean sweep of the council with almost every single one elected having a connection to Voices for Freedom. So that'll be an interesting one to see how that rolls out. Yeah. Well, there is Big Red Shepherd, who won his seat. He is a massive Trump fan. His whole campaign was make Selwyn great again. He'd probably be a big fan of building a wall, Peter. And I'm actually inclined to agree with him. Yeah, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want a big goddamn wall around the place? All right, let's take a look here in Bulla. We've got Chris Russell. Now, my problem with Chris is that he used a lot of pseudo law group challenging councils to go out and campaign for people to vote for him. And again, this is another really close election race, so it might change when we get the prelim or the final results. But he did not play nice with the people that he should have been playing nice with, and he played really nicely with the people that believe that they're not real people or real sovereigns. I still don't know exactly how it all works, but yeah, that's what he was dealing with. We have Tanya Gibson. She was re-elected in the Grey District Council, which not much of a surprise, to be honest. I think there's only one person that was running against her, and they're not particularly qualified for the role. And we have Marie Black. Marie was actually the other person who was elected unopposed, but she already been mayor and nobody decided to race against her. So she's one of two unopposed. Now let's head to Waimakariri with Dan. This is also one of those results that I really enjoyed. Waimakariri had a disinformation core group called Together for Waimakariri, or Together for Waimak, they called it originally, and then they changed their name about 2 weeks ago online because people kept saying to them, you need to actually try and pronounce things correctly. They all failed except for one, Tim Bartle. He ended up being elected. He is the one on their website who wears like a light blue suit, and he certainly looks like he's lurching around the place. But everybody else on that group failed. One of those members of that group was actually a candidate for New Zealand First at the general election, the one who made the headlines for screaming that they've got the cultural mandate to bury Māori. He did not get elected, thankfully. So it's really good to see that Together for Waimakariri decided that they didn't want to be together with them. Unfortunately, the neighbours in Selwyn weren't quite the same. All right, who else we got? This is another one that's too close to call. Westland. So we're probably not going to see results for Westland until, from what I've heard, probably Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah, it is a mystery who is going to take over there. And then we have Craig Mackle. He's taken out Kaikoura. He's actually been re-elected, I believe, not just elected. So he's been in the job already for a few years. He knows what he's doing down there. I'm really hoping he's got access to the whales, can look after the whales. But yeah, he's taken that one out quite easily. We have Nigel Bowen. He has been re-elected in Te Maru. His stuff is also really laid back. Like, it's kind of exactly what I expected for the mayor of Te Maru, on the farm, relaxing. It's really interesting stuff to see their background lives pop up. All right, we have Liz McMillan in Ashburton. She's been elected to that role, which was actually one of the first, it might have been the first announced race today. So it came out quite early. We have John Glover. He's been elected to Queenstown Lake, so he's taken over there. We have Scott Aronson. Scott has been elected to Mackenzie. There were actually a number of South Island mayors who were stepping down this election, and so we're starting to see their replacements come on through. We have Craig Rowley from Waimate. He's been re-elected. Obviously, the photo has him in chains, so he's done this as well. And then another one that I'm personally very happy about, Tama Ali for Central Otago. One of the people that was running against her in Central Otago is a guy by the name of Mark Quinn. Mark is the founder of that pseudo law group challenging councils, and he failed in his bid for both the mayoralty and for a seat on council. The other person who missed out on a seat on council was Gil Booth. She's a very vocal member of Voices for Freedom, so she did not get elected there at all. It's like the people of Central Otago are like, no, we're not going to take any shit, and done and dusted. That was actually where the clip I got from my documentary of the mayor talking to Groundswell about how it's their fault that rates have gone up over water infrastructure. So I'm really glad to see that is an area that is sitting there going, no, we're not going to have any of this shit. All right, we also have Melanie Tavendale in Waitaki. She ran as an independent, first time running, I believe, and she seems to have romped on in. We have Jock Martin. He's been elected in the Clutha area. I believe he's a councillor, so he sort of stepped up from being in the role into something else. Down in Gore, Ben Bell has been re-elected. He was actually up against one other person who was, I think, a former councillor, but they did not do particularly well. But Gore was one of the places where no matter who won the general ward, they were going to get somebody on there who had links to conspiracy theory groups, because they just had so many running that were in that one person would miss out and the others would get in. This one included Mel Coppett. She is the lead administrator for Groundswell. It's her name and signature that's on all those documents that said, hey, we paid for advertising for ACT during the last general election. So she's now a councillor in Gore. So I'm sure that'll go down really well. We have Tom Campbell. He looked like somebody that you would think is a deputy mayor. He was the deputy mayor of Invercargill, and he's now going to be the new mayor of Invercargill because Nobby Clark has stepped down. It's basically a new person in that job. Nobby's brother did not win, like everybody expected. We have Rob Scott. He is the re-elected Southland District Mayor. This is another district that actually had so many people running with conspiracy-linked beliefs in some of the wards that there was no way that they weren't going to get them on. And Jaspreet Boparai, who's a presenter on Reality Check Radio and very much linked to Voices for Freedom, she got re-elected in that particular part of the country. And then let's wrap this up with Chatham Islands, where we know nothing because it's the Chatham Islands. By the time I was like, let's print all of this, I just hadn't had the results come in, which is really, really simple. Simple as that. So yeah, those are our new mayors, sort of. There are some really close races in there, some that are too close to call, but there are some races that are only a couple of hundred votes in it. So things could definitely change. In some places, there was somebody who didn't come up on my list here, and that was the Waipa mayoralty, because that's been changed as well. Susan O'Regan's out and Mike Petit is in. What I noticed in the Waipa race is the Cambridge race where Hope Spooner is. Now, Hope, you might remember, was part of the Better Waipa team. She was the one who decided she wanted to storm Parliament and was trying to give ivermectin to people for COVID and telling people how they could fake a RATS test so they could travel. And, you know, one of those people who came and yelled and screamed at me in the middle of a street during my mother's craft day appearance a couple of weeks ago. She is in the Cambridge race. She's the last on the list, but there's only 17 votes between her and the next person. So this is something that could change as well with those prelim counts tomorrow, or with the final counts end. It's going to be really close. See whether or not I can go back to Christchurch. Actually, you know what? Instead of let's just talking about telling you which people got in, I'm going to play you a video of some of the people that got in. So give me a second. You can sit there and we can all cry together. Actually, there was somebody in there who didn't get in, and that was Clyde Graff. Clyde Graff, the anti-1080 campaigner and former bank robber, did not get re-elected to the Waikato Regional Council. Again, a million things to do, and I haven't cloned myself. I'm allowed to make the occasional mistake, but there are some disturbing names that are in there. But there are also some really good things that have come out of this election, in that we've been able to see really specifically places where these disinformation candidates have failed. We've been able to see that the impact that they wanted has not been anywhere near as much as they thought it would be. We've seen some places like Wellington do this big shift to the left, and we've seen some places like Kirikiriroa do this big shift to the right. When it comes to the general election, it's kind of a mixed bag, but it should hopefully highlight to people like us, like voters like us, that it is so important to get out there and have your say, because, you know, what was the number? 31%. 31.6% of the country decided to vote in local body elections. And we've seen how close those races are. We've seen how close the races are around the Māori ward referendum. So it is really, really important to make sure that people know for next year, for the 2026 general election, that we have to get out there and we have to be heard. Like Pat says, if the left votes, the left wins. It is a little daunting, to be fair, but what are you going to do? Sit at home and not vote? No, let's not do that again. All right, I have one more video to show you, which should hopefully wrap things up really nicely, because we've been through all the results and I'm already losing my voice. And we've put out the travel advisory for Selwyn. That's certainly a place that I don't think I'll be going to anytime soon. Or Waipa, or Hamilton, maybe not Matamata Piako. Oh God, definitely not Kaipara. Yikes. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the people who are actually unsuccessful that fell into this list, because the people that were unsuccessful, that number far outstrips the number of people that were successful. And I think that's also a really, really good thing for us to take away. So let me just add this to the stage. 1 second, please, caller. One there.
In the arms of an angel, they didn't want to come back. Elected members pushing disinformation kept being stopped in their track. Almost completely ineffective. They were good at getting bad press. Now they're leaving to focus on some other mess and get angry at what reality check radio tells them is a problem now. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. In the arms of an angle.
Oh no, he was
Come
successful.
back. Elected members pushing disinformation kept being stopped in their track. Almost completely ineffective. They were good at getting bad press. Now they're leaving to focus on some other mess and get angry at what reality check radio tells them is a problem now. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. In the arms of an angle, they didn't want to come back. Elected members pushing disinformation kept being stopped in their track. Almost completely ineffective. They were good at getting bad press. Now they're leaving to focus on some other mess and get angry at what reality check radio tells them is a problem now. I think voters will be better off without them somehow. I think voters will be better off without them somehow.
Yeah, long day. Oh, that one. That's the one I want. That button there. Very long day. As I said, though, numbers are still coming in. Things are still going to be settled over the next couple of days. So who knows how things are going to change in the next 48 to 72 hours. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. One of the really, really important things to do, though, is to make sure that you are all registered to vote for the general election and that you're ready to hold your council to account. There are some places that have had such a shift to the right that you as voters are going to lose services. You're going to lose assets because that's the only way that they're going to be able to make their books work. So make sure that you are pressuring them for what's really important. Do what Napier did when they threatened to close down the library, even just temporarily, to save some money on a rates bill. Let them know exactly what's important to you as a community and what's important for you to have around for other people. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I know that I've made some screw-ups with tonight's names. I'm sure of it because it's been a very long day. But I'm glad that it is done and dusted, hopefully. And hopefully this acts as a reminder that you've got to be ready to vote. I think that's pretty much all I've got to get through tonight. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for the support over the last couple of months. Right from when I first started this and did the AstroTurf work, it was really fascinating to me to see just how deep things went, how disingenuous a lot of these people were, how problematic a lot of their beliefs have been, and how much harm that they could have had on communities. And some will, like the people of Selwyn. But it's also been really rewarding to see the feedback from people and get the messages from people that have been encouraged to go out and vote because of what they've seen. And we might not all have gotten what we wanted, but it's always really gratifying to see that people are out there engaging in some way. And hopefully it means that next election, they're even more engaged. It's been a hell of a journey. Now, I think I'm going to wrap things up, and I'm going to go and get myself a couple of drinks from the fridge. I think I've got a bottle of wine in there, a couple of beers. Who knows? Until next time, guys, look after yourself, live long, prosper, be one with the force, and I will catch you all next time. Sorry, I'm just updating a list of places that I'm probably never going to be allowed to visit again, or the ones that won't be there for me to see in the future because, well, you saw the results. You know what's going to happen next, don't you?